In this video, we're going to talk about the key principles of building muscle. How often should you train, the importance of progressive overload, the right volume, nutrition, and more. Let's go. One of the first things that you need to decide is how often you're going to train each week. Study shows that training a muscle group 2 to 3 times a week is much more effective for building muscle than just once. Okay, so let's say you're training 3 times a week of resistance training. Instead of doing push, pull, and leg split, it's going to be much more effective for building muscle if you do something like upper body, lower body, and full body. So in this case, you're going to train each muscle group at least twice a week. One of the key principles when it comes to building muscle is applying progressive overload. Progressive overload means you're increasing the demands on your body over the time, so that can help you to make a sustainable progress and avoid plateaus. You can apply a progressive overload in several different ways. You can increase the weight over the time. You can also increase the sets and the reps that you're doing. You can increase the time under tension by adding slow tempo. You can reduce the rest periods or increase the volume. To give you an example, let's say in week 1, you're going to do 3 sets of push-ups of 8 repetitions. And then in week 2, to apply progressive overload, let's say on set 1, we're going to increase the repetitions to 10, and then set 2 and set 3, we're going to keep the repetitions 8. For week 3, we're going to do all 3 sets of 10 repetitions. Then week 4, we can increase the sets. We're going to do 4 sets of 10 repetitions. Then week 5, to make it more challenging, you can start adding slightly more weight by adding a weighted vest, or you can do a little bit harder variation and elevate your feet and do feet elevated push-ups. In the past, it was believed in order to grow a muscle, you need to keep each set between 30 to 70 seconds time under tension. But research shows now that load, intensity, and how close you go to failure matter more. So let's say you're doing a set of 6 repetitions with heavy weights. That normally is going to take you about 10 to 12 seconds to complete it. This is going to be just as effective or even more effective than doing a set with lighter weights, and then you're staying in the time under tension between 30 to 70 seconds. The idea of time under tension, it still could be a useful approach, specifically for slow twitch muscle fibers. Each muscle group is going to have slow and fast twitch muscle fibers. Muscles that have a higher proportion of slow twitch muscle fibers are mainly endurance-oriented muscles, which are responsible for postural support. Muscles like your core muscles, hamstrings, soleus muscle, which is a deeper calf muscle, and your upper traps. They're going to have a higher proportion of slow twitch muscle fibers. So applying slow tempos in your sets, it could be an effective approach to challenge those muscle fibers. When it comes to a work volume, you would like to aim somewhere between 10 to 20 sets per week for larger muscle groups, such as your lats, quads, and chest muscles. For smaller muscle groups, such as your bicep, tricep, and calf, you would like to aim somewhere between 20 to 30 sets per week. You would like to spread those sets across the week. So instead of doing 10 sets all in one day, let's say, for example, for the chest, 5 sets of bench press on Monday, and then you can do 5 sets of push-ups on Thursday. So that can give more opportunity for your muscles to grow. It's important to mention that increasing your work volume too much too soon can have a negative impact. It won't necessarily help you build more muscle and can lead to overtraining and injury. Instead, focus on a gradual, progressive approach where we're going to increase the volume over time. A common question I get is, do I need to train to failure in order to build muscle? Interestingly, a lot of recent research shows that you You don't need to train to complete failure in order to grow the muscles effectively. When we talk about failure, that means you cannot physically perform another rep, or you're unable to perform another rep with a proper form. Studies suggest that if you stop 1 to 3 repetitions before going to complete failure, it's going to result in the same muscle gain compared to when you go to complete failure. With that being said, for me personally, it doesn't make sense going to complete failure, because that is going to increase the risk of injuries. Also, it's going to make it less enjoyable and not that sustainable for most people. And in my experience, while some people can see a progress initially, by training to failure very often, that is going to decrease your recovery and you might hit plateau much faster. However, it's important to remember that in order to build muscle and strength, you need to go close to a failure to really challenge your body. Eccentric phases when you're lengthening the muscle, like when you're lowering the barbell in a bench press. You're actually stronger in this phase up to 10 to 15% more. Focusing on eccentrics can boost the protein synthesis and muscle growth, but don't overdo it. Eccentric actions are going to be the most damaging to your muscles, and you might need more time to recover. A simple way to implement this is by slowing down the lowering phase of your lifts. Focus on doing exercises with full range of motion. Extensive research shows that doing exercises with full range of motion is going to lead to more muscle growth compared to partial range of motion exercises. When you work through the entire range of motion, that is going to lead to more muscle activation, recruits more muscle fibers, and is going to lead to better hypertrophy and strength gains. Focusing on working through the entire range of motion is going to also improve mobility, joint health, and is going to create more balance between the muscle groups. While partial range of motion exercises can be useful in certain situations, such as targeting a specific portion of the lift or working around injuries. However, you need to prioritize full range of motion exercises for maximum muscle gain. Now let's talk about calories. In order to build muscle, you need to be in caloric surplus. So you need to consume more calories than what your body burns throughout the day. That is going to create more anabolic environment in your body to help you build more muscle mass. However, you need to be cautious though. If you increase your calories too quickly, that excess energy can be stored as a body fat. So you might be asking how much you need to increase your caloric intake. A good starting point is going to be between 10 to 20% of caloric surplus. From there, you can adjust, just based on how your body responds. If you're not gaining any weight and muscle mass, you might need to slightly increase your calories. On the flip side, if you're gaining weight too quickly, that might mean that you're gaining too much body fat. So you might need to dial back your calories. Now you might be wondering, how much muscle mass realistically can you build every month? For most beginner males, they can build somewhere between 1 to 2 pounds every month. And for beginner females, they can build somewhere between 0.7 to 1 pound every month. For more experienced lifters, progress normally tends to be slower. For males, they should aim of building somewhere up to 1 pound every month, where females, they should aim for building about half pound every month. In order to build muscle, you should focus on increasing protein synthesis while you decrease muscle protein breakdown. There's 3 key elements to this process: resistance training, recovery, and proper nutrition, especially protein intake. To build muscle, you need to focus on your protein intake. For most healthy individuals, a good rule of thumb is going to be somewhere between 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per body weight in pounds. So for example, if you weigh 150 pounds, you should aim somewhere between 120 grams to 150 grams of protein every day. It has been shown that it's more beneficial to spread your protein intake across several meals throughout the day instead of having one large protein meal. Why? Because protein synthesis normally peaks in about 1.5 hours after you have a meal, and it's going to return back to baseline within 2 to 3 hours. So to maximize muscle growth, it's going to be smart to distribute your protein intake across 3 to 5 meals or snacks throughout the day. While carbs don't directly increase protein synthesis, they play an important role of limiting muscle breakdown by replenishing glycogen levels. They also support recovery and giving you more energy to train harder and more efficiently. While protein is the king of building muscle, don't forget to include some good quality of carbohydrates, like whole grains, veggies, and fruits in your daily diet. Optimal hydration is crucial for muscle building and overall performance. If you're not well hydrated during high-intensity training activities such as resistance training, your cortisol levels, also known as stress hormones, are going to spike and are going to be much higher compared to if you were well hydrated. But increased cortisol levels can lead to more muscle breakdown, hindering your muscle building efforts. If you're dehydrated, that also is negatively going to impact your strength and endurance. Your workouts are going to feel much harder and your performance is going to drop. So that is going to decrease the effectiveness of your workouts.